Hello and welcome to Three Continents of Awakening. This talk is going to be about the fourth fetter, about want. And before we start, I would like for everyone to introduce yourself. My name is Pernille. I'm from Denmark, but I'm sitting in the US.
I'm Todd, and I am also sitting in the US.
Vince in Australia.
Kathy in Australia.
Homer in the United States.
And Jeff in Canada.
And I just realized that because Branimir is not here yet and Leona is not here yet, we're actually only two continents at the moment. We need Vienna and England to tune in, but they might come at some point.
You can
Anyway,
represent Europe.
Yes.
Europe.
Thank you. Scandinavia here. So today's talk is about wants, and very often when we talk about the fourth fetter, we talk about the fifth fetter as well. But I would like to separate the two because of the different types of energy. And for people that are working with the Awakening curriculum, for me, it's very important that they get that sensation in the body. I want it up from the head, from the cerebral understanding into the body sensation, so you can feel in your body what is actually happening. And in my experience, that is the way to go, so we don't get locked into the head and to talking philosophy, but really integrate it into the body. And that's why I separate the fourth and the fifth, because the fourth, about craving, about want, all the things we want. Just imagine that thought of you're buying a lottery ticket and it's 48 million and all of that. Ooh, it's going to be amazing winning that, and all the things that it's going to change in my life when I win those 48 million. It's going to be amazing. Or ooh, that cupcake, I'm really, really looking forward to that cupcake, or whatever again. So that is like a very expanding energy. Where the fifth fetter, the ill will and the resentment and the anger and the wanting people to be different, that's a very, very contracting energy. So it's two very different experiences in the body, and that's why I would like to separate the two. The questions that I was thinking about posing today, it's just suggestions. If you want to share something else about wants, feel free to do that. But the first question I would like to talk about is that how would you describe wants and craving? How would you have described that before you saw through the self? And how would you describe what wants is now? Now you have seen through the self, and now that you know what wants actually is, how would you describe it to someone else? And the way that I experienced it in myself, it was that when I had cravings and when I had wants, it was very much about wanting another degree. It was very much about me, about education, that I wanted another degree. I wanted to be better at it. I wanted to go deeper. And then I wanted, another another degree, and wanted to go deeper. And it was like that want, and it wasn't so much about getting the degree, and it wasn't so much about me dazzling people with all my degrees. I never ever talk about it to anyone, but it was just this feeling of an improvement that would happen. My knowledge would become bigger, and I would become a better me if I had this extra education, this extra degree on top of it. And when I saw through it, I realized that grasping for that extra degree, extra something on top of it, it was a complete diversion. It was a complete diversion. Obviously, it's not something outside of me that can improve anything. It's always an internal job. It's always that bubble of reality that we're in, and we're just sitting and looking into a mirror. So it was about an internal feeling of something that needs to change. It was like a craving internally for something that I couldn't have. And when I just sat with it, it ended out with being me, 5-year-olds, and craving dad's recognition and acknowledgement, and what I really, really needed was not another degree. It was a hug from dad. It was that basic. It was that what it was about. It was that feeling of loneliness or disconnectedness or lack of love or lack of acknowledgement and lack of reassurance, I think, that I was striving for. And once I realized it, that the once was about that, then every time I had the idea of, ooh, that looks interesting, I could get that too. Then I was just sitting with it and trying to feel into what is it really that you need? You know, do you need a hug? And in most cases, it really, really was. It was about that. It was a diversion, but the diversion was pointing in the direction of what it was. I needed reassurance, but obviously I thought it was outside of me. My dad's reassurance, obviously, is not my dad's reassurance I need. That would never do anything anyway. It was my own reassurance of my experience, of my physical experiences that I had of staying with that pit in the stomach that just never would fill up in any way, just staying with that and just creating space to be in a world where that was present and not trying to divert from it in any way, but just staying with that pit for as long as it lasted. And it's like 7 seconds at a time, so it's quite doable. So for me, it was about that. And if before I would describe craving as that urge to achieve, ambitions to achieve. I used to say I had lots of ambitions. So it was that ambition to achieve. And now I would describe wants and cravings as a very clever diversion into pointing into something internal that needs to be met.
Yeah, I would say it's the same for me, really, although that realization's only come recently. Although I kind of noticed that the things that I've wanted has changed over the years as I've done kind of more spiritual practice, more meditation, and related to, you know, the falling away of the illusion of the separate self. So, for example, I used to imagine a sort of career path in my job, and I just really lost any interest in that. You know, something around sort of status. But what you're talking about has only really come to light recently, and really since you posted the stuff about Fetter 4, and I've been listening to it, and it's really been like remarkable clarity about wants, because I'd never really worked with them before actively. Like, I've been working on 4 and 5 for the last 12 months or so, but mostly with a focus on 5. And, you know, it's like I kind of would skip over the want.
Yeah.
And almost even notice it because of some reactivity going on. But yeah, I realized recently there were kind of like 2 big wants, really. Well, 3, but one was about wanting to finish working and retire from my job, and I really want that feeling. Like, I really want that. The other one was just more a lifelong thing about diving into wanting to be smaller, physically smaller, like thinner. And before this practice, and, you know, really, before, this has kind of been you know, something that's been sort of changing over the years, of sort of still feeling this real pull toward, you know, dieting and losing weight and trying to control my weight, and starting to see through that as just maybe something that isn't necessary anymore. And then seeing that actually I don't have any control over that. There's no controller, there's no agent, and those patterns run. Sometimes I eat more, sometimes I eat less, sometimes I'm bigger, sometimes I'm smaller. That's kind of been in recent years. But then just in the last little while of looking into it, it's like, oh, I realized that the deep want about being smaller and being thinner, like I thought there would be something about that that would make my life better. So that was the belief before, you know, looking into it more closely and seeing what is actually at play, that I could wear the clothes I want to wear. Well, why do I want to do that? You know, what's wrong with the clothes I've got? I don't really love them, but I've got this imagined kind of future where I go and, you know, it's effortless to go and find clothes to wear, and I feel like I look good in them and want to wear them. And I kind of realized in just like looking into that more, by virtue of that practice you have of really exploring it, like imagine you've got that, then, you know, how does your life change as a result? And of course I can't point to anything external about that. And I realized that that there's a sneaky sort of belief that my life I will be at ease in the world if that happens. So that's the belief, that I would be at ease if I, in this case, you know, was smaller and could choose clothes that I want to wear. Somehow I would be at ease. But then separating out the sensations around that, the feeling around that, and the thoughts about that, what I could see is exactly what you're talking about, that I get this idea of that either as a problem or something that I'm going to have in the future, because I've got this, it's not really an expansive kind of want, it's actually a contraction. There's some core thing going on, you know, between here, I'm kind of pointing to my head and my belly. There's something going on that if I go into a thought fantasy world, it's like I'm there's an illusion that I'm getting away from that I'm changing my experience right now by imagining a different future. And that's actually become quite clear. Same with the thing about retiring from my job. When I really separated out the ideas about that, the thoughts that were coming from that real pull to, oh, I really want that, I want to, you know, not have to go to work, I realized it was about interacting with people, and that my idea is if I retire from my job, that I will be at ease in the world. So that theme kind of came through about ease, and just seeing this mechanism of, and it's not even a mechanism you can find, but just this tendency to imagine something is wrong right now and imagine that something is better in the future if I get this thing. And it's really just about diverting from something going on in my body, really.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's one of the things that is on so many people's mind, the part about losing weight, about the body being different, about not having wrinkles, or not having a belly, or not having whatever. And I think that in this community, you know, the awakened community, it's almost frowned upon if you admit that you want to lose weight. You're supposed to be beyond that. You're supposed to be above that. You're not supposed to be concerned about your gene size. So I really love that you're pointing to it, because I really think that experience of wanting a different body, wanting a different size is resonating with a lot of people. And I really hope that if somebody's sitting and listening to it is doing what you're pointing to, you know, looking into that sensation of lack that is supposed to change, as if anything can be any different than right now, how it is right now.
Yeah, that's right. I really like, it's something that I feel has taken a while. In a way, it's the most obvious thing, and in another way, it's taken a while to come out from into the light, because it's so easy to justify, you know, like a way of eating or a way of exercising. You know, oh, it's just because of this. It's just because of health, or it's, you know, because there's too much processed food in society, so therefore I'm, you know, making choices about eating healthy food or whatever. But I do kind of wonder how many people, even with awakening, could really cope with becoming like physically different to how they are. Like, I think when you start to, that's when it kind of comes up. I know Vince has talked before about the aging process being a challenge on that front. But yeah, I think it's a deep thing that we underestimate the power of in society, and yet it drives so much of everybody's behavior every single day. And, you know I sort of realized that some of the shame about it that I have is, you know, because growing up in the era that I did, and I'm thinking it's probably the same for women now, and even, you know, for men, it's like being fat is the worst thing you can be as a woman. And so you internalize that deep kind of shame, really, about, you know, not being, I suppose these days it's all about social media for young women, but, you know, in my day that wasn't there. But still just some notion, and it's such a fiction. Like, you know, one of the things that I realized is that I have this idea that there's something very unacceptable about me being bigger, and I cannot find any evidence that anybody cares about that except me. So I don't know who the people are that, you know, are, you know, just waiting to reject me as a person, because I really can't. And even when I observe the way, you know, recently I went to Sydney and I saw some people that I haven't seen for a while, and I just had this thought that they would, you know, notice that I've put on weight. And as far as I could tell, they didn't react any differently to any other time in my life that they've seen me. I doubt, I mean, whether they noticed or not, it didn't seem to even register in experience. So, you know, that's the thing, like, where is the rejection that comes from that? It's like you're talking about with your dad, where is the rejection? It's actually only something that you create in your mind about yourself.
Yeah, and that's also why that nothing external can change it. I mean, if you look at TV, I look at the TV when I'm at the gym, you know, and it's like there's all these hooks that are being thrown out. Are you a man and have no hair? Here's a hook. Are you a woman and you have big thighs? Here's a hook. Are you a man or a woman, you got wrinkles? Here's a hook. Are you a person that is sad every afternoon? Here's a hook. It's like they're like it's like shooting with all ammunition for everybody to feel shit. And then you buy a product to feel better, as if something external is going to change the internal feeling of lack. It's like the entire society is geared around us feeling like shit and doing something about it. Not what we're doing here, sitting and acknowledging that there's nothing missing in this moment. We're such bad consumers here.
Yeah. And that, oh my God, moment of realizing there's actually nothing that can be done.
Yes.
And then out of the pointing as well, and I don't know if this is getting a bit ahead of where you wanted us to be discussing, but
Go ahead.
realizing that the imagined I will feel better part, like, you know, there'll be better experience of life if I get, in this case, thinner and wear different clothes. It's like, well, where is that? Oh my God, that is just a fantasy. And because you lead people into, well, imagine that you've got that, you know, it became so clear that that's just the fictitious bliss that you talk about.
Yeah.
So, oh, okay, that's also not related to anything. It doesn't refer to anything like externally. There's a bit of a buzz from thinking about it.
Yeah, and
But
also the most crazy thing is, if you can imagine how it feels right now, you have that weight, I snap the finger, you have the weight, how does it feel? And you feel amazing. Well, there you go. You don't need to do anything about it. It's already here. You feel great.
Yeah.
You know, why chase the thing in the future when it's actually, you can think about it right now and it's here right now. It's available right now.
Yeah. And that in, you know, in reality, there's no capacity to, like, there's still like a sneaky belief, even with practicing, that somehow, and this is changing, but, you know, it's come out into the light a bit again recently, that, you know, somehow there's going to be a realization that just means everything feels good. You know, and in fact, that's not what life is. Like, as you point out, you know, life is impermanent. So whatever bliss state you have, that won't last. And also whatever, you know, unpleasant feeling that's there, that won't last either. So there's actually nothing you can do. There's nothing that can be done to create a different experience. It's like, yeah, I mean, it sounds like, oh yeah, I would have heard that even months ago and agreed with it. But something about this with looking into once has just made me go, oh my God. This is all just the playground of the mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how would you describe once now to somebody that hasn't done the work? How would you describe? I would say a diversion that is pointing to something important. How would you describe it?
Yeah. To someone who hasn't experienced it, oh, I don't know. I think I would just describe it as like a fiction. It's a fantasy and an idea that something is going to come to you to make your life better. But at a momentary level, I would agree with you that and you know, it's so clear that it's a diversion. It's a diversion from something going on that going into the playground of the mind of thinking gets you away from.
Love it.
Mm.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you for being up this early. I know that you have to go to work at some point. I'm really, really happy that you're up this early.
Oh, that's okay. It's fun.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else?
I guess I could go next. I love that, Kathy, so much. That was really, 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 really amazing. So I think looking back on it in the past, I had kind of an extra unhealthy relationship with cravings for a good deal of time, because coming from a Buddhist background particularly, I had taken them as being not just sort of an urge of the body or an urge for something, but it was like a moral failing that these things were even there. And so the idea of having a desire or a craving itself had like this extra layer of moral judgment about it, that this thing even existed. And it was like almost like seen as like an entity or a part of the body that had to be just removed in order to become a better moral, spiritual person. And it was like, you have to get rid of these things before you can become enlightened. And if they're still lingering in any way, well, then you haven't done enough work, or that sort of thing. And then over the years, as I kind of went back and forth on those, I would say that just in the general view, the feeling of what craving or desire or a want was, it was like it was like a feeling in the body that was like, this thing needs, like, I need it in a way that is, if I don't have it, something bad is going to happen. Like, it's like a feeling of such a hunger or such a deep need for this other thing that it doesn't go question. It doesn't get questioned normally. We just, I would just, satisfy the thing, or again, morally judge it and kind of rebel against it and suppress it and pretend it wasn't there. But then in doing the kind of inquiry into the fourth fetter stuff, then it started to really break down. And then it got a lot more interesting, because then for a while it was experienced almost like a magnetic pull inside the body, where it was like almost felt like a tingly magnetic force that was like, you would have an idea for, whatever, some dessert or something, and I would put it in front of me and I would sit there looking at it and just feel this kind of draw to it. It was like, I really want this thing. I really want to put it in my mouth. But what is that feeling? And it's just this kind of almost feels like two magnets that are close together, and you're like resisting that urge to have them just snap together. But as both, Pernilla and Kathy, you both said, that even is a diversion from something that was really underneath it. And the more work I did with it, the more it was clear that really the drive for that dessert, or, going to my cell phone and doing stuff, or watching Netflix, or whatever the thing was that the craving was happening for, it was actually a way of distracting from this constant unsatisfactoriness of life. It was the feeling that something underneath it was not good enough, not pleasant. I was in need of something that was not the thing that I thought it was. It was just that it felt like something was not right. And so going into that, it became sitting with these feelings of unsatisfactoriness, sadness, all these different things that would come up, and then recognizing that it was really just this thought, this sensation in the body, and with the thought removed from it, it was just sensation in the body. And then I looked to see how it connected to anything else, how it connected to this, dessert or whatever the thing was. And there was, of course, no way that a physical sensation in a body can connect to anything else. And so I was looking for even the thought links, anything that seemed to be in any way relating these two things, and there was none. And then eventually that would kind of break down, and you would see, oh, there's nothing there. And so now when I talk about cravings or wants, it's very clearly that there's a sensation in the body which is mostly there diverting from something else, which is uncomfortable, not ready to be seen, or not wanting to be seen. And that there are thoughts about it, and there are thoughts that are saying, this thing is the thing that will solve it. And just like Kathy said, there's this fantasy idea that there's something else out there which is going to make me not feel this thing anymore that I don't want to feel. This thing is going to be the satisfying thing. And of course, every time we think we want something and we get that thing and it doesn't satisfy us, maybe for like a minute or two, it feels, oh, okay, well, that was great. That really hit the spot. Okay, what's the next thing? And then because that underlying dissatisfaction with whatever is in your experience doesn't go away from it, it's still there. You just have conveniently distracted from it for a few minutes, and now you're back on the search again. So the takeaway is that, and really what kind of broke it is the idea that or the recognition that there is no such thing as craving, or there is no such thing as desire or wanting something. It's a sensation in the body combined with some thoughts about something else, which is trying to distract from what is there, and separated, they have absolutely no power, and there is the whole kind of edifice that we call craving just disintegrates. And then over time, you fall into the trap less and less, I think. And so that was basically my experience of it.
That's amazing. So how would you describe it? How would you describe the craving to someone from, that hasn't done this, that is, would it be that it doesn't exist?
Yeah, I think that's sort of the takeaway, but they wouldn't really get much from that. I think pointing them to, well, it's hard, because if somebody's never had a craving, then I guess, I would say to them what it felt like to begin with, which was, this feeling of absolute need for something else that is either in front of me, or that's a hypothetical thing in the future, which I know would absolutely satisfy me, because something feels like it's missing right now without that hypothetical thing. And then having the realization that it doesn't actually exist, that
No such thing.
that hypothetical thing is not here right now. You cannot miss something that's not currently here, because it's not here. This feeling of I would recommend, for a person who is looking into this, to look into that feeling of dissatisfaction, or that whatever that underlying need is, that is much deeper than the cigarette, or a bottle of beer, or whatever the thing is that you think you're craving right now. That's never the actual thing. What is that keeping you from getting in contact with? What's that keeping you from realizing that you're actually missing? And then seeing if you're actually even missing that.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, that's the next level. Looking into if you really do that. Yeah, that was also my experience, that it wasn't really reassurance from dad or a hug from dad that I needed. It was reassurance for me, and a feeling that I got my back. It wasn't external at all. Yeah, love it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Vince, my friend, it's so early. It's so early for you. Yeah, I'm so happy you're here. I'm really happy that, in the middle of a very, very, night and early morning, that you're here. Thank you.
It's all right. Yeah. Well, I guess that's my cue to talk. But I have to warn you, I have no idea what I'm going to say.
Here we go.
What comes out? I feel like a fraud. I feel like I don't know why I'm here, because, yeah. So probably the first thing I need to say is I haven't actually done any work on desire and aversion, as in the Fetter work. I haven't taken anything to the lab and investigated it as such. Yet this work goes on all the time. So it's a story I've got, that everything that's been unpleasant in my life is my father's fault. Right, because he didn't approve of me when I was young. He always wanted me to be different. My memory of him is him telling me I'm lazy and I'm useless, and I don't know, not even a lot of other things. But nevertheless, I recognize that wanting his approval shaped my life incredibly. And of course, now it's a joke, now I see, of course, it wouldn't matter, even if he said, you know, Vince, you're a wonderful kid. I couldn't expect anything better. I would probably still feel the way I feel, because that feeling of deficiency is in me. You know, I remember being at school and feeling different to other kids. My interests were different, so it was my head worked differently, as well as my body wasn't the perfect body. I remember being very upset at about 9 or 10 years old that I didn't have a dimple in my chin like Superman did. You know, that would mean that I would be masculine. You know? But anyway, so jumping forward to when I woke up, this was a big thing. So when I woke up, it was through the portal of recognizing that what I call this is it. There is no alternative to what's currently happening. And the recognition that I keep repeating, that by the time I become aware of what I'm experiencing, it's already done. It's finished. It's in the past. So consequently, it's crazy to want it to be different. That's just an overlay of confusion and corruption to what actually is going on. In fact, it sets me up for the next experience, which is not going to be pleasant if I'm worried about what this one is about. You know? So consequently, what that portal that I went through led me to accept whatever it is that I become aware of. And that has an interesting effect, wrong word, but close enough. That has an interesting effect on contentment, on desire. Now, whether that's desire to pull something in or desire to push something away, I see them as essentially the same kind of thing. You know, what it is that what I am experiencing needs to be different. Whether I'm pulling it in or pushing it away, that's basically the same thing. And so for, I don't know, 12 years now, there's been this constant reminder that, well, this is it. This is it. This, whatever. So there's that. That's kind of a foundational part of my story. And then I get to specifics, and it kind of grows out of that. And one of the specifics is that, how can I put it? It seems like I have an obsessive personality. So when I get into something, I really get into it in an obsessive way. And that's my whole life until something replaces it or I get bored with it or whatever, you know. So if I've got a hobby, I'm fully into it. If I've got whatever it is, I'm so fully into it that there's not room for anything else. And you can call it obsessive. That's probably a fairly good description of it. That undeviating attention to it. And that suggests that I am escaping from what I might be experiencing. So it's more like a diversion where I keep myself busy rather than something else. Yeah. So I'm not for a moment saying that there's nothing to work on. There is, but so here we're meant to describe, I guess, our experience of this stuff, and yet as I'm describing it, I feel like I'm working on it. all of the things that Kathy has said and Todd has said and so on, are all good stuff, really good stuff. But in terms of my experience, I can relate to it in my head, but I don't relate to it in my body. That there's no such thing as desire or aversion. I know there's not. I know that they don't exist as a thing. But when I feel hungry, if I ever do, I don't know if I do, then I want to eat something. And the feeling of want is very real. But of course, it's me settling on the label of wanting that makes it into that. It's I don't experience much. I don't want stuff these days. You know, things going on around me. You know, I don't want the war in Ukraine, or I don't want the Israel-Palestinian thing to be happening. But I can do nothing about it except accept it. You know, that's the only way. The only way I can not get myself into a state is to accept it. And of course, getting myself into a state is totally fruitless. It's not going to change anything except for me. And that's kind of crazy, because why would I want to make myself feel bad or feel sick?
So I'm thinking, if somebody in your group says that I need to talk about this. I really want this job so I get a promotion, and then I get a higher pay, and with the extra money, I'm gonna be so much more relaxed and happy in my life. Don't you agree, Vince?
What a setup. That was good. Yeah. How would I react is
how would you guide me?
Wow. Well, the obvious thing is we've got to look what is it that you are feeling right now? Let's come back to the body.
Yes.
The sensations. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And how much of what you're feeling is related to the story you're telling yourself about this stuff?
Yeah, it's to me, it's one of the most key points in this. It's also what Kathy was also pointing at. It's that feeling in the body that there's something that I don't want, that feeling of lack. There's something that is missing, or something that is there that I don't want, that something else is gonna make feel so much better. You know, I'm really concerned about my finances with a raise. I won't have this concern anymore. I mean, everybody understands that. But what we are pointing at is that sensation in the body that says that this sensation I have now is because of my finances. And once my finances are better, this sensation is not going to be here anymore. That is a lie. That's an utter lie.
Of course. Yeah.
You know? And
so that horrible feeling, that horrible feeling of
could be about anything.
Apply the story to. That horrible feeling that we apply the story to is what we're wanting to escape. That's for sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
And when we start saying, well, that horrible feeling. So if we go do the reverse, if we say, well, you've got that horrible feeling because you haven't got enough money, because you haven't, so that's all wrong. That's not right. You've got that horrible feeling because you imagine if you did have the money, you would be better off. So it's that feeling of something missing. But that's something.
Sorry, no, go on.
Well, it goes a lot deeper than the stories you tell yourself about what's missing.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's also what you said about before, that now you don't really want anything, well, you want food. That's such a good point, because again, I'm very much for working with all the fetters at the same time. And the ninth fetter is that where we don't plan anything, but we just move towards, I'm hungry, so now I'm moving towards eating. And if there's any issue for anybody about food, then it's that part that if you're planning in your head, oh, what you're gonna eat, and oh, it's gonna be so good, and I'm gonna feel so great, and oh, life is gonna be fantastic. Right now, you're not here. You are in the future thinking about stuff. You're not here right now. And when you sit and eat, you're thinking about the next bite and the next bite. You're not even here. And then you're full. And then you maybe, have eaten too much. So now you're not content. Now you're looking forward to not being so full anymore. So it's like that, always one step ahead, instead of feeling in what is happening right now. I have a craving for food because there's a physical sensation that I don't want to feel. And I think that is going to improve it, or at least fantasizing about it is going to remove me right now from that physical sensation I have in my body. And that's why we use the want as a diversion, at least how I see it.
Yeah, I was also just going to jump in, and Vince, when you had said about being hungry and then wanting food, and then that want is a real thing, I was just going to invite you to actually look at that. And that's exactly as you guided Pernilla in, as if she was somebody else, that point, that want that you're assuming is just a real thing is just another thought label that you're putting onto this other thing. So what is the actual experience of quote unquote wanting something to eat at that moment? Where are you really feeling that? Where is the drive? What's making it for this one particular thing and not something else? If you're really hungry and you're really wanting that cheeseburger, if somebody handed you a bunch of asparagus instead, would that still be suitable? Is that, it's going to fulfill the hunger, but is that really what you want? Is that, so where is that actual feeling of want coming from, and what actually is it?
Yeah. And the idea that, I'm hungry and I want something to eat is I don't quite know how to put this. It's a secondary sensation. It's not the primary thing. It's not where it starts. It starts at something much, much more fundamental. And that just happens to be something we can grab and put over the top of this at this moment.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Me wanting to eat something, especially if I'm wanting to eat something when I'm not actually food deprived, I was going to say not hungry, but no, I am hungry, but I don't need to eat because I had a meal before. That's a total fabrication that's put on top of something that's so fundamental about my self-worth.
Yes. Yeah. I usually recommend people when they have that, but I do need to eat, and I haven't had enough to eat. So I do need this piece of chocolate cake. I always invite them to, swap it out with a bowl of kale and see if they're still in for it. Because very often you go like, ooh, cheeseburger, ooh, chocolate cake. I'm going to have a bowl of kale instead. I mean, then you are probably hungry if you don't forget the cheeseburger and the chocolate cake without.
Well, hunger's a really interesting one. I haven't for a while, but I used to frequently fast for 3 days, and watch what happens with hunger is really an eye-opener. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Working with the fourth fetter with fasting, that's really, really powerful. I can warmly recommend that to anyone. Yeah. If you think that you're seeing through the fetter, go for 92 hours on salt water and see how that goes. It's a bit like Ram does, and if you think you're enlightened, spend a weekend with your family. If you think you're not craving anymore, go on a water fast for 92 hours and get back to me.
Yeah. There's lots of discoveries to be made there.
So sorry.
Lots of discoveries to be made with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it.
That you never get the opportunity to unless you do something like that.
Yeah. I agree. Jeff and Homer, my friends.
Yes, I'll go. I unmuted. Okay, Homer. Okay. So, yeah, a lot of interesting stuff here from everybody. I guess I want to start with so how would your question, Pernilla, how would I describe craving to somebody who had not experienced it before?
Yeah, first I would like to hear how you thought how you thought seeing through craving was. And then now, how would you describe seeing through craving? Because before we work with it, it is a bit like what Todd was talking about, that we have this idea that so some of us believe it that craving and all that grasping for something, that it's something has to do with moral, or something that has to do with the backbone, or something like that. And when we then see through the fourth fetter, then we realize, oh, it's got nothing to do with moral and backbone. It's about a deep seated lack, and the craving and the wants. It's just a diversion. It's pointing to something very, very crucial and very valid, but it's got nothing to do with backbone or moral strength or something like that.
Right. So before working through this, I would have said that there's a sensation that is compelling, that won't be ignored, that won't go away, that can be postponed, but it's still there. And eventually it demands resolution. And the thing to resolve hunger is to eat. And then one goes from a state of being hungry to a state of not being hungry. And something has changed and something is accomplished. Now I would say that's all delusion. First of all, the sensation isn't even just one thing. It's very subtle and textured and comes and goes. And it's not true that it's persistent. That's a story made up about it. It's not true that it's compelling. It's not true that there's any actual need there. Like if I don't eat for the next 60 days, I'll still be fine. And if I died, well, I don't need to be alive either, really. That's another story. There's also something really subtle tied up in with it, which is that one state of hunger, let's say, can transition to a state of not being hungry. That's not true. The only connection between the state of not being hungry before it's here is just a thought. It's just a projection of the future. It's an imagination. It's an imagining. So there's no connection between what's happening right now and this imagining. And if there were something in the future, if there were a future state, which there isn't, there would still be no connection between what's happening now and that future state. That would require someone to exist to have both experiences, but all that is obviously just mental machinery, clunking away as it always has. So, yeah, sometimes I'm hungry and I eat, but if I examine what's going on, I'm not taken in. So that's a really simple craving, but I was thinking also of the more complex ones, like you were referring to, and Kathy was referring to, having to do with body image or academic achievement. That's layers and layers of stuff. I used to be stuck on academic achievement. It had to do with growing up in a family where I wasn't seen or acknowledged, and wanting to do something that made me worthy of attention. And I lived my whole life chasing that until I quit it. And if it wasn't other people's approbation I wanted, it was my own, as if I had to earn it, which is also not true. Yeah, and anything else? I mean, I think that it just seems like delusion through and through right now.
I love that. It's such a good point. It's such a good point about that having to earn it. That justification that we have in us that I'm not worthy as I am, but if I get another layer of education on top of it, then I will be worthy of acknowledgement and of, reassurance. And so I kind of have to earn it. The focus is on doing and not on being. You're really, really right about that. That's so tied into the craving, into the wants, where it's again pointing at that underlying feeling that needs to be met. The idea that you're not worthy as you are, but you can become.
Right. There is something that I'm not clear about, though, and that is, it seems in my life, good relationships with friends and family, and that is so rewarding and so valuable, and it doesn't seem unreasonable to want that. So I don't know where that fits into this picture.
Well, yeah, I get what it's great and it's wonderful to have, but if you have any expectations to them acting in a certain way, or to them always be there to reassure you, then there's something to look at.
No, actually, I find often they don't meet expectations, and what happens is not what I thought I wanted, and yet I have such appreciation of them and of the time I have with them. So yeah, it doesn't happen when there are expectations, but when I let go of all expectations and agendas, but there's still a desire for it to be there and for it to be good, and it's not a desire like that I feel in my body that I chase. It's more like it comes to my awareness. Oh, it would be good to reach out to so and so. It's been a while, something like that.
You touch on something here, Jeff, that I feel is important, and partly I was trying to get across, and that is there can be this mental story that it would be good if this happened, but there can be also an underlying attitude that says it might or it might not happen. It's okay I'm okay with whatever turns out. Yet I recognize that there is that gentle attraction towards that possibility. I mean, I still buy lottery tickets. Whether I win or not's another story, but I still buy them. Can't be, got to be in it to win it, kind of thing. So it'll be great if I do, or maybe not great, maybe just good. Maybe it won't even be that. A lot of people win the lottery and then have trouble in their lives. Who knows?
But isn't it also
we're not attached to it. You know what I mean? Sorry, Kathy, go on.
No, sorry. I thought you'd finished, or I probably jumped in a bit. It's still the same thing, though, whether it's something, what would you say, like whether or not the thing that you want is a bit neurotic or not neurotic, it's still the same thing going on, whether it's wanting to connect with a friend or like when you were talking, I was thinking one of the wants I have at the moment is we're waiting on a result about some possible cancer in my partner. And I really want that to not be cancer. But actually, right here and now, so you might say, well, that's a really laudable, understandable want, same as, you know, wanting to connect with friends is, you know, something about the deeper kind of beauty of life or whatever. But actually, in this moment where we're not in that situation, it's still imagining a link between something going on in the body and a thought. And when you look at it, they're not really linked things. And it's also imagining something working out in a particular way that will bring you happiness or someone else happiness or make your life more meaningful or whatever. To me, it's still the same whether it's wanting a piece of cake.
Exactly. And it's also making the world so small, you know, because right now you are assuming for that cancer test, if that is negative, to give a relief. But you don't know if a positive cancer is going to be David's access to freedom. You know, that is how he's going to see through self. That's how he's going to, we don't know. We simply do not know. And is that fixating and believing that what we can predict with our puny minds can predict will happen in the future is going to be so much better if it's like I want it to be. You know, it's just not how it is. We are so limited in the knowledge that we have. We have no idea. That's the one thing. The other thing is that right now there's nothing there's nothing wrong with your partner at all.
Exactly.
In 2 minutes, there's nothing wrong with your partner. The moment after you have heard, you know, what the tests are saying, there's still nothing wrong with your partner. That part about cancer is always the one that is being, I know that is very much alive for you, and I hope I'm not sitting and poking you in any way.
No.
But that part about cancer is always the one that is being used as an example. Well, what you want to be healthy, you do not want to have cancer, and yet I have experienced people having cancer and that being like the most liberating experience in their life, because finally they didn't have to, you know, do all the things that they forced themselves into, and finally had permission to do what they actually want to do in life. So it's just that fixated idea that we have of a label that I want something is going to be different or better in the future, and yet everything right now is exactly like it's supposed to be. Like there's nothing that can be improved at all.
And there's actually no link between the sensations and anything else.
That's
no link between a thought about it. There's no link between something out there. There's, you know, but I know, Jeff, sorry, I probably hijacked that with my more dramatic example of cancer, which you may also notice wasn't the first thing I spoke about in the meeting either. It's like whether I'm large or small kind of got above the cancer, really. But yeah, but just to kind of say about that distinction between, like, are there better wants than other wants, really?
Well, that's a great philosophical question, but my heart is not interested in it right now because I cannot devalue the things that I love, you know, and well, I mean, that's right now, that's where I am with it.
But I'm curious to the word devaluing that you talk about. What do you mean by devalue?
Well, saying because I want beautiful moments with friends, you know. like that doesn't present as a craving. It presents as just a notion and appreciation afterwards. But if we say, well, I don't know what I'm saying. I really don't. I really don't. Maybe that's in my mind.
It's because that you know what you talk about with the craving, with beautiful moments with friends. If it's dictated that all of them have to smile at the same time, then there's an issue. If it's that they can, you know, argue as cats and dogs and it's still a beautiful moment with friends, then it's fine. You know, if there's an expectation to it being in a certain way, and that is where the wants and the cravings are, then there's an internal issue and it's pointing to something in you that would be great to look at. But if they're completely free to be going through whatever they're going through, and whatever happens, and it's raining as well, then you know, and that's fine. Then there's no attachment to it. Then there's no identifying with what could be better than this, what is right. And that was what I was trying to circle to that a second ago. I forgot about it. That's the part with the ninth fetter, that when you just move with what is, then beautiful moments with friends are there every time you're with friends, because it's always beautiful being with other people. No matter if it's, you know, Frank at the gas station yelling at another person. Go on, Ben.
This is a really interesting movie if you think about it. So I'm going to have a meeting with some friends. I anticipate it, okay? So in my head, it's going to be beautiful. After the meeting is finished, in my head, that was beautiful or not, right? But while I'm with them, I don't have one single thought about how beautiful it is, because I'm so busy being with them, I'm not thinking about it. I'm just reacting. So the beautiful moment is all in the head, before and afterwards. It's not a beautiful moment while it's happening. I mean, it is if we want to describe it, but the actual experience of it is just what's happening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Sorry, go on, Jeff.
I agree, Vince. And no, the beauty, I'm going to make it very explicit, is seeing something in them and in myself that I didn't even know was humanly possible. It's the discovery of a depth and compassion and beauty that's beyond what I realized existed.
So does that happen while you're interacting with them, or afterwards when you're thinking about it?
Why, it unfolds later when I'm thinking about it. Yeah.
So it's like a second dessert, isn't it?
Kind of indescribable. I don't know.
Yeah, good.
But you know, I deny that in an absolute sense there is meaning, but I feel this as meaning.
Yeah. Yep.
I also think it's when we talk about wants, it's about that constant contact with the body and feeling what is going on in the body. Is what when I'm thinking of my friends and being with my friends, is something in my body happening that I'm diverting with when I'm looking forward to being with them? Or is it giving me a special feeling like the 48 million when I think of it? Or so that constant checking in with the body, how the body is responding to the thoughts, because it's kind of like how we constantly can make like that, what do you call that? I don't know what you call that in English. It's like that report finding out how are things going right now.
Progress report.
Yeah, it's we call it tilstandsrapport in Danish. It's kind of like that when you buy a new house and you have an expert in and checking out the house and telling you what is the condition of the house. Like it's like that kind of report. So it's kind of like, how are things right now? And you can only figure out how things are right now by checking in with the body. You can't figure out anything in your head. You can't figure out anything by thinking of it. It needs to be felt. It needs to be in the body, and it needs to be experienced and felt in the body. And there's so many diversions going on in the mind from what we're feeling in the body.
So just to state it really clearly, we cannot find desire or aversion in the body, no matter how far closely we look. It does not exist in the body at all. No,
it's a label. It's a label that we put on with the mind. We have a sensation in the body, and then we put a label on to describe it. And then from now on, we're only talking about the label, and that is minimizing the bodily experience. So the experience that we have in the body is minimized by that label. Yeah. Branimir, so good to see you. We started an hour ago. You see,
Okay.
Europe is back to winter time. The US, as always, is behind. The US is so behind, like everybody in Europe knows. So backwards.
Sorry, only I don't know that.
Yeah, and Australia has done winter time a while ago. So
sorry.
Yeah, so good.
Okay, I didn't get that one. Really didn't even. Yeah, we actually changed the time as well last week, but you didn't, right? So
no, we do it next weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Branimir, you're alone representing the whole continent.
You okay? I can do that. No worries. Sorry for that, but I hope I didn't miss much. I mean, I for sure did, but.
Oh, you missed all the interesting stuff, especially the bits where we were talking about you.
Okay, yeah, but there isn't. I can watch it later anyway. So.
What we talked about is that we're differentiating between the fourth and the fifth, with the fourth fetter being about the cravings, all the wants, all the things that we want. That like when we want a cupcake, or we want, a new job, or the 48 million, or something like that, something that we want outside. And then the question is, how would you describe that desire and craving before you saw through self? And what do you actually know now that desire and craving is? And what I experienced was that desire and craving, I had like that desire and craving for another education and another degree and all of that. And it was like something that I wanted, and I found out when I saw through self that was something external, and it was pointing internally to a feeling of lack, that I wanted my dad to see me and recognize me and acknowledge me. And then underneath that, I found out it was not about dad at all. It was about my acknowledgement of me staying with me and me loving me. So the craving and diversions was just, the craving and wants, it was just diversions, but it was very important diversions pointing into something in me that needed love and compassion and kindness. So my question to you is now, how would you describe what was wants and cravings for you before you saw through self, and how would you describe wants and cravings now when you have seen through it?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the most complex part of the awakening. So this is the part which I worked probably from the very beginning, when I found out about that I have to address, until late as well. So it was not, I didn't follow the Fetter model here. So this was following me all the way through, basically. So because every story, every craving had to be addressed, basically. Not every, but most of it. So it was not that when I saw that there is no one wanting or didn't want anything, that all the all this craving or, you know, once and done once disappeared. So it was not like that. So it was not like a button that switched completely off this. So there were different stories that had to be addressed and different feelings. So the body was always I was always looking into body, how it reacts, going into the feelings. Sometimes there are two things here. Sometimes you notice that when I was just staying with the feelings, we don't want, you know, when I can take some, I can, you know, bring some example, like, you know, getting a job, like getting a fix, you know, getting a job at university level, for example, you know, for like a tenureship was something that was always striving for. But I realized that caused lots of suffering, basically, there, because it was not there. It's very hard to get it. So that was one of the moments that I worked a lot, actually, maybe over a year, with just the feeling, sit with the feeling, because it was coming, it was going better and better, but it was sitting just with the feeling, just let it be there, not reacting, not resisting. It helps a lot in this regard with these dons and, you know, with these cravings. But the other part is that there's always a story giving life to this. So there is always a narrative. Sometimes these are not easily to be spotted, but, you know, most of the time they're there. So that's the other part, which was very, very important to see, that there is always story, you know, that, you know, when then the body reacts, then there's another story. And sometimes there's different, you know, these cravings are conditioned also by different stories, by different feelings and emotions, if you can put it, but it's always a story. So there's always, you know, behind the feeling of the craving to be something or achieve something, there can be a different conditioning, like a shame, like a validation. So there's a deeper layers of that had to be addressed then later, and then realize, okay, I have to go deeper in order this to completely, you know, shut down. And it happened eventually. You know, I didn't do particularly anything special there. Seeing that there's a story basically belonging to no one, and then going again into feelings, it's just the same thing all the time. You know, there's no, it's just same approach for both of them basically. So but yeah, it's very complex, this part. Yeah, I would say for me, it's all the way, you know, it's probably the most complex part of the awakening, addressing those, because it's still you're dealing with stories, still you're dealing with selfing a lot, you know. Yeah. There is this is the center of the selfing, I would say, you know. Later you could, you know, I think if this, when we address this correctly, also other layers, other perceptual filters, I'm not so sure, I cannot, you know, claim this, but I assume also from my experience, they can, you know, the deepening can progress faster, if I can say, you know, and other layers can drop. But because these are so central to our lives, that's why they're most complex, because there's different stories. Especially for me, there are different stories that had to be addressed, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not. Sometimes I was just sitting, and then I was, you know, driving in the metro here, and all of a sudden reaction in the body, and then let's see the story. There was a story there, and I just going back in my mind, and there is a story there. Okay. So it was like work in progress, but yeah, quite. Yeah, definitely something that's even, you know, it is a big part of the awakening. Definitely, maybe the biggest part.
I really love that. I really love that, what you're saying, that believing that there is a want or a craving, that's just one story, and there's always another story underneath. There's always something,
always another, yeah,
always another level. There's always like the next and the next, and I really love that. And I know, Todd, you have also talked about that when you have your deep dive groups, that even when you're working with groups that have the fourth and the fifth fetter that are working with that, that it always comes to the point where they're going back to the 3 first foundational fetters.
Yeah,
it's inevitable.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. The that part was, well, lots of work. I would say that's work. There's a part of awakening which is, I'm not ashamed to say, it's work. It's really work.
Yeah, but it's the same that I experienced as well. That it's and it's also why I'm making such a point out of that, of the bubble of reality, and there's a mirror on the inside, that whatever you want, you know, whatever you're looking at that you really want, it's your own reflection. There's something there's something inside. It's never ever outside. There's something on the inside, and it's pointing exactly to that. Find out what it is, because there's a level deeper, and it's about the same thing, and a level deeper and about the same thing. Yeah,
that's so important what you mentioned, that it's the problem is never there outside, no matter what it is. No matter what it is. I know it can be hard, but the problem is always the relationship to that, or reaction to that. So it's always here. When we learn that, when we see that over and over again, that's so important. That's the so big insight, that the things are, they're the problem. Whatever it's happening, it's fine. Basically, you can say that. It's really, you can say that it's completely fine. There could be, if you could choose this or that to happen, you could still have preferences. So we're talking here about attachments, and it's key to see that these are attachments. We are coming back to the no self thing, that these are not happening to anyone. You know, there is nobody behind them, and that's the part that is so important to be seen. It's different conditioning, yes, there, and history unique, but there is nobody there wanting or don't want. When that see, even once it don't wants, are fine to happen. They will. They will, you know, there are preferences still arising, and that's fine. But the key is to be seen that they're arising for no one. And this to be directly seen and experienced. Very crystallized. This has to be really crystallized completely in every moment. So, and when there's no reaction at all, then you know it's fine.
Yeah. If
it happens, it happens. If it don't, it don't. It's just fine. That's it.
So when we say, this is something that just occurred to me, I've had an issue with this for forever and ever, I think. When we say there's nobody there to be experiencing this, people often stop at that point, and that to me is bypassing. Right? Yeah. What the follow-on from that is, if there's no body there, if there's no person there, if there's no self experiencing that, what is actually happening? That's the logical follow-on.
Yeah. People have to find out for themselves. That's the thing. Yeah. You know, we can talk about that as much as you want, but it's, you know, it's just a talk. I cannot, you know, clearly say how it feels. It's impossible. There is basically what, you know, we always hear all the time. Nobody experience, no thing experience thing, but things are happening. So, but there is. Yeah, but that's, you know, maybe talk for some other time, but it's part of this as well. Definitely, you know, it's a big part of that.
Yeah, a thing I would like to point out when we talk about that, because that's the part of the bypassing, you know, that when we say that, oh, I have a craving, but there's nobody here, so I actually don't have a craving. Right. So it doesn't matter. I can eat a cupcake. Doesn't matter. That is just completely bypassing. Instead of really looking into it, it's not where we're pointing. We're not giving the green card for eating as many cupcakes as you want. It's that being curious to that, to the story about it, and the attachment about what that want is going to improve in your life. What part of you is going to improve with that want? What is it that you are diverting from and not becoming aware of?
Right. And it's important when you have this, when you do this work, just not fall into the trap that something will happen now, that everything will, you know, shut down completely. You know, this is, as I said, for me this was work. I felt it like that. And you know, it is actually, because it's big part. It was exhausting. It was, you know, lots of conditioning, lots of history. I think everybody has that. So it's a work, and it's so much bypassing is to say, hey, there's no one here. Then you are imagining how things should be, falling into the expectation trap, while it's very simple. You look at the story and look in the feeling. So how this is the interplay between that, like the dance between the story and the feeling, emotion that arises into the body. So the body is always the platform to use for this. And body always signals. I remember, I mean, whenever there was a shift to happen, body was always telling me 2 days ahead at least, and something's gonna happen tomorrow or in few hours, and maximal 2 days. Especially when I work with these desires and wants and done ones, because the body was something, okay, something has been addressed now. And this was very funny, But yeah, body is, as you said before, always looking to body and then the story. This is the two things that I don't know where else, but.
Love it. Thank you.
And also looking at the one thing that's been key for me has been because it is like this, it can appear to be on another level like an acceptance practice, that you just accept sensations or you accept feelings that go on, but taking that next step of then inquiring into what is actually going on is where the juice is. And a key thing has been to be able to recognize, not just because I felt like before the Fetter work, I was already pretty good at just staying with sensations. That's what I felt. But what was kind of a little bit out of view with that was that push-pull, the ickiness in there. I think you can kind of almost bypass the ickiness by just staying with sensations in the body. But when that came into the light, that push-pull kind of thing, really it became another level of exploring and welcoming the fact that there's also like a not wanting, that there's a resistance, and that resistance you can easily divert into just going, oh, well, there's no one here. And being able to kind of welcome and acknowledge that that's going on is kind of what managed to open it up for me as well, to really be able to look into it, go, even I was in a meeting recently where I really wanted a particular outcome and I could see this discussion going in another way. And because I had some skill in staying with that ickiness of it, I could really feel what Todd was talking about, like this magnetic pull. But what I could see really clearly is that the meeting was just going on, and that magnetic pull was somewhere in my experience, and those two things were not linked at all. And I could stay in that sort of feeling of that and just recognize that this whole other world was going on beyond this pull that I had, and there was actually no link to that in the meeting, in what people were saying. It was only just in me, and I could really feel that what I wanted to do was jump in and talk in the meeting as a way of relieving that ickiness.
Yes.
So being able to kind of accept or even see it in the first place, and secondly, just to have some skill in staying with that, seems to kind of break the illusion that there is any kind of control, that there is something out there that can be affected by what goes on in the body, if that makes sense. That's been a really key thing. Yeah. Anyway, so I have to also go. I'm really keen to hear what Homer has to say, and I need to go to work, so I'll watch that bit back.
It was so good seeing you, Kathy. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so appreciative of that. Thank you. So good seeing you.
Have fun in the rest of the meeting. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. I just want to build on what Kathy just said, because it's one of the things that we also pointed out with the awakening curriculum, that part when you have those even if situations, that even if I'm sitting at a meeting and people are really, attacking me, or I hear other people are talking about me behind my back, or something like one of those. Even if that happens, everything is fine. That it's that when that happens, for example, like Kathy talking about sitting at a meeting, and you have that, you really want to defend yourself, or you really want to clear out, the misunderstanding, or you really have that need for other people to see you in a certain way, or really staying with that physical sensation and seeing where is the connection between that contraction you feel in your body and that feeling of injustice that is happening, and then you clearing it out so other people act in another way. How are those two connected? How do you think that you can control something that is outside of you in any way? And what does that delusion of control have to do with that contraction that you feel in the body? It's that we create a scenario where that, oh, no, I don't want people to talk to me about me like that. I want them to see me, as a good person or whatever. And that contraction that we feel that is so difficult to stay with. So we completely leave ourselves, leave the body that we're in, that is so uncomfortable to be in, and are trying to persuade other people of having a different view or seeing things in a certain way, or anything like that. That is one of the best grounds of practice that, that we can have, to really notice that there is no connection. There's no connection. There's just me in my body staying with the sensation that I don't like, because why are other people not allowed to say what they want to say, have whatever opinion they want to have? Can I be in a world where Janice doesn't like me? Can I be in a world where she's talking bad behind my back? Why do I have a need for Janice to be any different? Why do I want for Janice to like me? I mean, that's an internal job. That's got nothing to do with Janice at all. And that's one of the important points with wants, that we really see through that delusion that anything outside of me has any influence on what is happening inside of me.
And I would like to put up a whiteboard. I'm imagining how people who are watching this could be getting a little bit overwhelmed with some of what we're saying, and I'd just like to clarify it too. This, when we look inside at a sensation, what the body's experiencing, I frequently tell people this: a feeling is a sensation plus a story. So when we're looking inside of ourselves, like for example, Kathy was talking about that icky feeling. Like, now I know she knows, but for people watching it, it wasn't an icky feeling. It was a sensation, and the story was about ickiness. Okay. So when we look at what we're actually experiencing, when we're looking at these sensations, to kind of get closer to the origins of what's going on, the moment we try and describe them, the moment we put a label on them, we're getting away from them. So that to be able to stay with the sensation prior to describing it, just experiencing what that sensation is just such a huge key for people. If they can get a hold of that, almost everything else just falls away. You suddenly realize what the stories are.
Yeah.
Because they're not in the sensation, they're extra to it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm pointing out when I say that it's nothing outside of you.
Yes, yeah.
As soon as you put a label on it and saying, for example, like you're pointing at now, that is icky, then we are in the story, we are in the description, in the post-it about a sensation in the body. So yeah, I'm very happy you pointed at that. Thank you. Homer, my friend. How are you?
Well, to maybe bring this all the way to right here, right now, I'm feeling or being with sensations in the body. I wouldn't call them icky, but there is a curiosity about them. Suppose you could label them a little uncomfortable. I'll just label it like there's a vibration throughout this mid-range here, tightening in the stomach.
If I had met you before you saw through self, how would you have described craving and wants? And now when you have seen through self, how is your what is your experience of wanting something? What do you use it for? Whenever I want something, I know that there's something deeper that needs to be looked at. So I pause and feel into it.
Right.
What was your experience of wants and cravings? Little Homer, what did he want?
Let's see. To be seen, to be heard, to be appreciated, to seen, heard, appreciated, loved would be the main one. And I was always looking outward for all of that. Because that's, I don't know. Well, all I can bring it back again is this meeting. So maybe I shouldn't be doing that, but you can stop me. But since I was the last person to go, right? And then Branimir came in, and then you jumped to Branimir. So I was actually really the last person to go. So the thoughts fired up. You're ignoring me, you're not seeing me, you're not hearing me. And then all the sensations. So that's it. I can only say I'm only using what that's happening right here, right now. And that's what it's like. And it's like before seeing through wanting is I wanted to be seen. I wanted my turn. I wanted to be acknowledged. Yeah, that's it.
So what you're saying is that before awakening you're chopping wood and collecting water, and after awakening you're chopping wood and collecting water?
Thank
is that what
you,
you're saying?
Yes.
That before awakening you wanted to be seen, heard, and loved, and after awakening you want to be seen, heard, and loved.
Yes. Now there is a difference here, and I think that's what Branimir brought into the meeting a little bit. Is that the difference here is, and I'm going to have to use certain words here. There's the curiosity. Now, like right now, there's curiosity. Right now, there is seeing all of this and being with all of this. So that would be the difference between the two. The still the want and the need and stuff is still present, but the ability, if you want to use that word, is that right here, right now, there's the seeing of it. And what Branimir said, there's also realizing there's no self here. That's the difference between now and then.
Yeah,
there's no attachment to what's happening right now.
Yeah, exactly. that would be my next question. Do you believe that you can ever be seen or not be seen?
No, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Because there's a scene right now. If you want to use the terminology, I am looking at me now.
Yes, exactly. That was exactly my point. Exactly, because
Yeah.
you can't control if other people are seeing you and loving you.
Right.
But you can see and love you.
Yes.
So there's no seeing and loving from the outside in, but there can be and always is in the inside.
Yes.
There can't be anything but that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's the difference between pre-awakened, because I was still always looking for the external scene, to awakening now is being able to see from the internal. But that still does, at least for this body mind, does not negate that wanting to be seen. But that difference, that's the huge thing. Waking up to that which is seeing. I don't know if this is making any sense, but anyway, and it's that being able, like Branimir said, realizing that there's no self, but not, it's just that, to be able to see it. That's where the freedom is, and the contentment, even in the midst of the wanting.
Yeah, but the one thing has the hook that we had a talk on Saturday. I wasn't there, but I watched the recording of it, where the talk was about people interrupting and speaking over.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was listening to it, I was like, that can people ever interrupt and speak over? Because that is an assumption of me having a right for something, other people taking away that right, where in fact they're not doing anything, they're just talking. The story that is attached to somebody speaking over, somebody interrupting, that story needs to be intact for that to happen. In itself, it can't happen. It can't happen. It's just people speaking. There's no the interrupting doesn't happen unless somebody holds a story about I am being interrupted. Just like my question, can you ever be waiting? Of course you can't. You can't ever be waiting unless there's a story about that something should happen differently than what is actually happening. The bus should have been here now. The bus is not here now. The bus should be here now, so I'm waiting. Well, that story needs to be intact for you to be waiting. Otherwise, you're just standing at a bus stop. Just like in a conversation, you're not interrupted. That story that you need, that speaking time, uninterrupted, need to be in place for you to be interrupted. Otherwise, it's just you talking, somebody else talking, you talking, and that's it. That's all that is happening. So a story needs to be intact for us to have a craving or a want for something. That needs to be something that is not here right now, that can be here right now, and that's not possible.
Well, I can say I agree with all that for now.
No, I know.
The thing is, though,
it was
and
just
this
a
is
little
where I
rant.
go, is how can I put this? Is that when the story is like right here, right now, that I'm being ignored, I'm just going to use that as the story.
Yes.
That engenders feelings in the body. Is kind of like, or it can go either way. You can have a sensation and you put that story to it, or the story pops up and the sensation comes. I don't know, and I don't really care. But anyway, and that, so you have that. My point is the scene of that is the freedom and the contentment. Period. That's it. It's okay. The phrase that comes to mind is a lot of times that we work on this, there seems to be, I will, when I wake up, I'll be free from these feelings. My point is, I'm free even when these feelings pop up. That's the distinction. So I can still feel ignored, invisible, and still be free because of what we talked about before. There's the
I love it.
thing that sees all that. Okay.
Absolutely. It's the even if Janice is talking behind my back, I'm still free. Even if Janice is misunderstanding me completely, I'm still free.
Yeah. And even if I feel angry about that, even if I feel ashamed about that, I'm still free. Because it's not even about Janice anymore. It's me feeling criticized. I'm still free. Or if you're using the word in your pointers, content. I'm still content. I'm still simple. I'm still.
Stillness and simplicity. I love it. Thank you, Homer. Love it.
So you were saying when you see, you see what's going on. What changes when you see, or does it change something, or does it reveal something, or what happens with the seeing of it?
Nothing happens. I mean, everything. That's the thing. You see it, but the body mind still has to run its course. You guys have always said just stay with the sensation.
Right.
And Pranilla says 7 seconds, and maybe sometimes it could be longer, maybe sometimes shorter. Right. But the seeing of is just
seeing. Is there a
it.
Disconnection between the idea and the sensation? Does the seeing disconnect the two?
I think the seeing allows both, if you want to use that word. So it's kind of what Branimir said earlier, I think, that there's nothing wrong with wanting or not wanting. That's what normal life is. Wanting and not wanting, storytelling. I'm telling a story now. All of this doesn't change. It's okay to want and not want, but it's that contentment.
Vince is having an electrician coming, but that was a beautiful sight. Now we have seen that Vince actually has legs.
And he doesn't put pants on for these meetings.
And he doesn't put pants on for these meetings. Yeah, now we know.
Yeah. And on my screen, he's immediately below you, Pernod, so it looked like that was your body.
So I guess it's kind of, I'm trying to say then when one wakes up, everything becomes okay. And when I say everything, we've all said, Pernilla, you say everything is okay. Even when this body mind goes into a story and starts blaming everybody, it's okay. Hopefully in the waking up, I can maybe that time of being a victim is shorter now, but it's all okay.
Yeah. Love it.
I mean, it was okay. I really appreciate this meeting today because I got to practice again, not being seen and putting all those labels to the energy that was there. So I could talk to you guys about it now, and it's a real-time example. And I loved how you summed it up. Chop wood, carry water, chop wood, carry water. I felt invisible then, I still feel invisible now. But there is a difference, that there is this stillness and this contentment now. There definitely wasn't any back then when I felt invisible. So that was really cool.
I love that. I love that so much.
I guess I could say couple more things. This is for me, because you were pointing to it, Pernilla, when the scene sees all this, this contentment would be unconditional. And I've said this in our Fetter meeting. It's unconditional love. That means a love that has no conditions. So when this body-mind's being a victim, there's love there. And when it's being totally responsible, there's love there. Now, if I said there's no love when you're being a victim, well, isn't that a condition? You're putting a condition on it, right? You have to be, the only way you can be awake is never be a victim. Well, that's putting a condition on being awake. I mean,
your point. So I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to really emphasize that point that you're saying right now, because it's something that is not talked about enough, in my opinion, and it's that expectation that we have to how life is going to improve when I'm awake. Like, life is going to be better. I'm going to be woken up every morning by unicorns. It's like we have this idea that when I'm awake, then everything is just going to be better. And the whole point is that exactly the same thing happens. You're just not suffering anymore. That yes, you still have a feeling, a primary feeling of being ignored that is arising, that is coming up in you. But now you know that, oh, hang on. This is a story. Who can ever ignore me? Okay, I can ignore me. Am I ignoring me? Yes, I am. Right now, I left it because I wanted them to approve of me. Okay, do they need to approve of you? No, they don't. Do you? Okay, can you be in a world where you are not approving you? Yes, I can. Okay, are you still ignored? No, I'm right here, right now. Okay, sorted.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's that realization that when you're not selfing anymore, then there's no value in what other people do. They can do or not do whatever they want to do. It's completely fine. And as long as you have unconditional love towards whatever's going on here, then it's still fine.
And one other thing that I want to point out is at least for me, remembering, or when I still feel invisible or ignored now, even though I know I'm the freedom or this contentment, well, how can I put it? There's a humility with that.
Yeah.
There's a humility, a natural humility is present, and that lends towards compassion. Because then I can, even when you're, Pernilla, let's say you're awake, and I know you are, well, your salad dressing story is the beautiful story. You're awake, you've broken all 10 fetters, and you cry over salad dressing.
Yeah.
I have the compassion to go, oh, Pernilla is still human.
Yes.
We are all human. We can embrace our humanity with all its faults and all its beauty, but love, with this unconditional love. And so I'm done. Thanks.
Yeah, and also realizing that it's not false. That false is just a story. False is just something that we want to be different than from what it actually is. It is as it is, so it can't be a fault. It's just how it is.
Right.
You have webbed toes, then you got webbed toes. There's nothing wrong with webbed toes. So it's also that, really, really questioning the things but that's what we're talking about next time, all the things we don't want. So we can talk about your webbed toes Homer, next time. It's about all the things we don't want, all the things we want to be different. Yeah. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that anybody want to say here before we end it regarding what?
Well,
There's a lot to say. Let's do it. Yeah, I mean, great topic.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pernilla.
Yeah,
And I just want to say the life is definitely different after this.
Yeah.
Just to put that there. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just want to say again, I have this energy running through me. It might be just pent up release of fear of being honest. I don't know. But now I'm about to start ready to cry because there's this love here. I know it. I know we can feel it. Or we are it. I just know this. And I know all of you know this too. So that's not.
I love you so much, Homer. I think you're so wonderful. I think you're so wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you, everyone. I would like for you just to say put. I'm just going to stop the recording. But thank you so much. I really, really, truly appreciated this. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Sorry for being late.
Better not do that again. We're so disappointed in you.
Next year, probably, yeah. If
we're
you
so
drag it to
disappointed, Branimir. We're
yeah,
so
yeah,
disappointed.
there you go. Yeah. I don't care.
Yeah. Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.